Overall, I think that the use of marijuana has been a great thing for my healing process.
Survivor Revive sat down with two survivors of sexual trauma.
My name is Ashe, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Cassie, and I'm a survivor.
To ask them questions about their experience with using cannabis for healing.
Some of the benefits of using marijuana specifically have been that overlap with my other treatments. It's kind of like an extra layer of coverage.
Here is what they had to say.
Overall, I think that the use of marijuana has been a great thing for my healing process. I think that I have to look at it a little bit dialectically and say, on the one hand, it allows me or it has allowed me to experience my emotions in a slightly desensitized way, that has helped me kind of process things, or even to some extent be able to enjoy time with like an intimate partner in a way that I wouldn't be able to if I were fully present for it, if that makes sense. It allows me to show up for that person as opposed to completely dissociating, and giving me an enjoyment in that time. And then I think it also can be detrimental for survivors, especially survivors that have sort of my similar story, that the abuse started when they were very young. My first instance of abuse began when I was 2 years old, and it went on, um, for most of my childhood, from different various members of my family and family friends. And I think that with that, it's just you don't want what is already a complicated sense of identity. Something that I've found I have to ride a very fine line of is my identity was already interwoven from the start with the violence and things. And I don't want to ever use marijuana or any other substance at all as something that replaces the very real work that I have to do to show up like cognitively. And I think that it's a double-edged sword. It's good, and it's good if you use it correctly.
So, as far as whether marijuana has been more helpful or detrimental for me, I'd say it's been more helpful. Um, but I also would like to stress that it is a resource that has detriments as well. We have medications, we have therapy, we have all sorts of tools in our toolkit. And I think that marijuana is a tool that we can use to further our healing, and we can use it to kind of fill the gaps in our treatment where necessary. Maybe you don't have therapy as regularly as you need, or maybe your medications you're switching, whatever. So for me personally, using marijuana has been pretty helpful for my healing. In one instance, I was victimized while under the influence heavily of marijuana. And it was when I first had started using marijuana. So for that, for me, I've been able to kind of use it on my own safely and kind of reclaim that marijuana is not a negative, that person was a negative. And that I can use it for pain, for anxiety, for whatever, when I need to. So for me, it has been very helpful for my healing journey. And in a way, specifically because it's interwoven into part of my victimization. And it's been something that was unfortunately weaponized against me because of me being under the influence at the time. So to be able to take that back and use it as I need to or want to, it's helpful for me.
I would say that one of the main benefits of using marijuana, or really any marijuana related product, even CBD, which is something that I can access very easily in North Carolina. Um, I have night terrors, and I have most of my life, and I didn't always understand what they were, but I have come to a place where I do understand now. And unfortunately, oftentimes during those night terrors, it's not like sleep paralysis. Typically, it's not like I'm awake and it's weird. I am fully, completely asleep, and I will realize in my dream that I'm dreaming, and I will be screaming in my dream to wake up. I will be yelling at myself in my dream to wake up, and I won't wake up. And something that's been really powerful with the use of marijuana and related products is that when I use these things, especially in times of stress, where my just anxiety in general, like our neurological response to stress, once it's been carved, it's been learned. Um, I might have a stressful situation come up at work. My brain, my fight or flight, goes right back to that same scenario. And like, yes, my life is not in danger when my boss is upset with me, but I surely feel like it. And so I can use those products before going to sleep, and it helps me actually sleep instead of re-experiencing the trauma in my dreams, often from different angles, on things that never even happened, just interweaving my current work situation with the trauma that had occurred, and it all just kind of gets like messed up together. And having a peaceful night of sleep gives me so much relief. Yeah, that's kind of my biggest, nicest experience with that.
So for me, some of the benefits of using marijuana specifically have been that overlap with my other treatments. It's kind of like an extra layer of coverage. So I do therapy every week, and I do take medications, and those things are helpful. But unfortunately for me, biologically, I struggle to take a lot of medications because of the bad side effects that happen, because I don't like metabolize them right, I guess. So finding medications can be hard. Going through and doing the trial and error process takes time. It takes time for the medications to get into your system, to start working or to show negative side effects. And then you have to get up to the right dose. And then what if you're taking something else for this and one for that? And then they, so you see where it becomes a problem, especially when as a survivor, you're trying to treat a myriad of different things. I have PTSD, which isn't just me being afraid sometimes. It's also the insomnia, the sleep, the sleep disorders, the anxiety. And I love what she said about what Ashe said about her boss yelling at her. Maybe it isn't a threat to her life or her getting in trouble at work, but it does activate that fight or flight or freeze or fawn response sometimes that we have had and experienced before. And it amplifies feelings of negative feelings that we've experienced before. So having these tools, CBD, THC, CBG, I don't know, all the different ones, it's great because when your medications aren't working as well, or maybe you have to skip therapy or whatever, you have these other tools in your tool belt that are helping. I think the biggest benefit for me has just been knowing that I have something that I know how it will work, how long it'll take to work, how long it'll last, and I know what to expect. Because like sometimes you take a medication and there's side effects, or you have to take it with food. What if you don't have food? You have to take it with water. You have to. There's all these, rules sometimes with the medications to get the most benefit from them, and we don't all live in a perfect world where this is accessible all the time. But marijuana is something that is consistent, and I think that that's a huge benefit.
I would say that one of the main not effective things that marijuana has kind of brought for me is when used in excess in situations where I didn't know anything about my tolerance, didn't really know what I was getting myself into. My experience with marijuana started much later than I feel most people that I know. I did not use marijuana in high school or even very much in college. Honestly, my experience for the most part with marijuana didn't begin until I moved here to North Carolina, where it's like super criminalized. Um, and then so so basically by the time that this has happened, I don't know my tolerance, and I would put myself in situations where I would get what would be too high and reach a certain like state of paranoia, which can kind of do a lot of negative things to progress that I've made. I think one of the things that is very common for a lot of survivors of sexual violence is that we don't always trust ourselves. I know that I struggle a lot with knowing, am I making the right decision? Can I trust the people around me? Can I trust the person that I'm dating? Is this situation safe? And I wonder that constantly about so many things. So when I, and so when I put myself in a situation where I'm having that paranoia, that becomes all the more real fear for me. Am I safe, basically? And then another kind of added twist that is weird in places where it's not legal and it's not accessible. You I don't want to just buy it from a dealer. I was in Denver about a week ago, and I was able to partake there in a way that was very safe because it's legal and it's like a corner store. It's like a Starbucks on every corner, like it is in New York. It's weed on every corner, legal and accessible, and I know exactly what's in it. Unfortunately, if I were to choose to buy it here, you're really kind of gambling with that. And we've been very lucky to have things like Delta 8 recently becoming legal, and CBD is awesome. It doesn't do the same thing, but it definitely helps with certain aspects. But I think between the paranoia that I've experienced when I have partaken specifically in marijuana, like in THC, that is just it it can put me two steps behind where I was in terms of being on edge.
So, a few different drawbacks of marijuana do come to mind for me. I have my medical card in Florida, so I can just go to the dispensary. I know what I'm getting, etc. However, due to it still being criminalized and still being illegal recreationally in Florida, as well as federally overall being illegal, the price is expensive, and sometimes it doesn't really get to me. Like, I don't think too much about it. I'm like, okay, well, it's medicine. Like, I need to get it anyway. But that is a barrier for accessibility. So that's something that is a drawback for marijuana. Is if you're getting a prescription once a month, it may be $10, but how much is the marijuana costing? And if you use it, do you use wraps? Do you use what is the term? A tobacco pipe, a water pipe. Those things cost money too. Also, piggybacking off of what Ash was saying about using a dealer, if you have to go through a dealer to get the product, you sometimes are putting yourself at risk for anything, really. Like any number of things could happen. I mean, you could get robbed. What if they just rip you off and give you something that's not good? And you don't really have much say so in these things. It's just like you get what you get because that's the opportunity that you have to get something. And that's a barrier for a million reasons. But also, I would say the biggest barrier that I've had about using marijuana has been that because it's illegal and because it's federally illegal, in Florida, at least, if you're applying for crime victim compensation and you were using marijuana at the time of your victimization because you were doing something illegal, you are deemed to have contributed to the crime and therefore are ineligible for crime victim compensation. So because you brought it upon yourself. I don't know how the Attorney General's office is able to put that as a rule, because for so many reasons. Like, how can you victim blame us and say that we are at fault for what happened to us because we were using drugs? Or how can you say because we were using drugs that we shouldn't be eligible for a service that's beneficial for us due to our victimization? So it's just something that you need to, if you want to use marijuana, you should keep in mind that if for any reason something bad were to happen while you were under the influence of it or using it, it could potentially affect your rights later. And this is not legal advice, by the way. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just saying it is something that you should consider that could potentially affect your getting like crime victim compensation later. So I'd say that was the biggest drawback for me, is that it affects unfortunately, it's affecting my justice every single way that it can. Any sense of me getting justice is blocked because I was under the influence during my victimization. But that's it.
I personally cannot use it during the daytime and function. I do work in an industry where it's very important that I be completely present. So it's not something, honestly, even really during the week or anything, even something like CBD, I have to be very, very selective of if the benefit at the time outweighs the possible conflict. I otherwise, I typically would say that I would use it at night. It's and I kind of don't think it matters for me like what flavor of marijuana it is. I am just very sensitive to all substances, and I don't enjoy putting myself in situations where I am out in the world or around very much almost any people. I am very selective about the people that I will allow myself to let go of some control around, to some extent, especially I would say concerning things like concerning something like marijuana. I think something like drinking is a little bit different. There's a lot that goes with that. I can do that whatever time of the day if it's an appropriate circumstance. But marijuana for me is very different. It's an intimate experience, maybe possibly because of it being illegal where I am, that it's also something that I don't do in the light of day. I mean, most of the time. I also think that one of the main benefits for me being assisting with things like sleep and anxiety, that at night after a very long week, I have just a nice Saturday where I can sit down by myself and we don't have legal products here in terms of marijuana, but we do have things locally like CBD Rice Krispie treats and stuff, which is like, I recently got the experience for the first time to have legal marijuana products in Denver. I had never really had very much of that before. And I will say that the CBD is not the same, but it's something, and it's something that I prefer to use mostly at night.
Well, as far as smoking during the day versus night or both, it depends on if I'm working. If I'm working, I need to be of sound mind. I need to type a lot and speak to clients and work and function. So I can't just rip my bong at my desk at work, unfortunately. So I typically do my smoking at nighttime, before bed or like before dinner. It helps with appetite, so it's good to smoke and then eat. I like to do that, or before bed when I'm winding down and stretching and journaling and whatever. But if it's a weekend, then it's fair game. All hours are fair game.
I am really excited about this question as well. I would say that indica is something that I, I mean, indica couch, right? Like go to sleep. um, but I had the really blessed opportunity to engage in a romantic partnership with someone who uh, lived in Denver and knew everything under the moon about weed and taught me so much valuable information. So through this person, I was able to experience sort of different kinds. I found that most edibles are kind of hybrids for the most part. In Denver, there's a selection, but most that I've experienced otherwise have been a hybrid. And I think that that's a nice sort of middle ground for me. It's something, especially with like the edibles as opposed to the other forms of like smoking marijuana. I don't smoke anything hardly ever. Like I might hit an e-cigarette at a concert or something of one of my friends, but it's very uncomfortable for me to smoke. And so eating and with the hybrids is really nice. In terms of sativa, that is only something that I've recently started to get any kind of comfort with at all. Prior, yeah, only within the last year have I been able to enjoy what has been, to my knowledge, like sativa based products. And a lot of that had to do with that romantic partnership as well. I think it has so much with sativa to do with who you're with. Do you trust your environment? That's the strain that has sort of strain type flavor, I don't know, flavor that has gotten me into some paranoid states of mind. And being able to be with a person that you trust, a person who knows the product and can show you like, this is what it is with sativa, that helps me a lot. So I think that kind of, I do like both. I know that indica puts me right to sleep. I know that hybrids just kind of help me feel calm. I think too much of anything can kind of put you to sleep, but hybrids are something that I can eat a hybrid gummy and sit there and watch TV or journal or do a myriad of things that I can't do on a daily basis with the way that my brain just kind of, it can't really focus all the time. And then with the sativa, that's something that I can consume and be sociable, which is something that's very difficult for me. If I'm in a scenario with people that I know and trust, it gives me an opportunity to be more, almost show up more as myself than I'm comfortable doing without it, as long as I'm already in trusted company. So I kind of have experience with different types of weed, and I think that they all serve their purpose in the right place.
So I definitely prefer indica weed. I like kind of all the different types, gummies, vapes, whatever it, smoking types. I cannot smoke a sativa, like a pure straight sativa. It makes me extremely anxious. I already have anxiety, so for some reason, for me at least, it exacerbates that and makes me a little paranoid and just in my head, and I kind of get trapped dealing with thoughts or whatever's going on. I'm just like, oh no, something's wrong. But with an indica, it calms my system and just kind of helps me relax and be funny and be social and do whatever. If I smoke a lot, it helps me sleep. If I smoke less, I can, go clean the house or do whatever I need to do, journal, relax. But the sativa definitely, I know it can be more beneficial during daytime for some people, but I can't make it work. At least I haven't yet in the last, since I started smoking a couple years ago. But yeah, I would definitely say at least indica or indica leaning hybrids that's where I kind of fall.
My advice for any survivor who would like to explore the use of marijuana for healing, I would say when we experience sexual trauma, we lose to some degree the trust in ourselves. And society has an awful lot to say about marijuana for some very strange reason. There's a lot to be said about it, but at the end of the day, what's very important, I feel for myself and I feel for any survivor, is to trust yourself, know yourself, know if exploring this is something that you want to do, if you feel in your heart that that's something that you want to pursue and you just want to see how that is. I would urge you that if it's something you've never done, travel to somewhere where it's legal first to try it, just so that you don't have the concern of, is this what I is am I getting what I asked for? You know, take a trip to Denver, take a trip to somewhere like DC where it's decriminalized, just to be on the safe side. But if you have that desire, um, go with it. Don't deny yourself. There's so much difficulty in knowing. I feel like after a lot of the different sexual traumas I've experienced, where I just end up in a spot of like, okay, not only do I not trust anybody else, but to some degree, I do not trust myself now. And that is something that I would encourage anybody to lean against. Trust yourself, know what you want, know yourself, know your boundaries, and vice versa. If you know that you don't want to do this thing, that it's just something that has never felt like something you wanted to do, then don't give in to any peer pressure. Don't, I mean, it's something that's been beneficial for me, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not for everybody. And if you are a person who already feels like, I don't really want to try that, then trust that, respect yourself, respect that boundary, and set it firm with anyone who tries to push it. You owe that to yourself. I think something else that's really important if you're going to try something like this is, if you have a therapist that you're working with, which as a survivor of sexual trauma, I think is critical. But if you have a therapist that you're working with, or any kind of medical practitioner that's in your life, I I mean, my trauma occurred significantly during my developmental years, which, you know, leads to some psychological, psychiatric wounds. And marijuana, THC, it's psychoactive. So don't do it alone, and consult a medical professional or a counselor before you go down that road, just to make sure that you're making the safest decision for yourself, and that you are going to be okay should this experience not be as effective as you wanted it to be. And then also with that, be mindful of your age when you're deciding to experiment with some of these things. We don't finish developing until like our mid 20s, I guess. And you want to make sure that at least for me, I've been wanting to make sure that the identity that I've developed is as authentically me as possible.
So my advice for survivors that are interested in trying marijuana for their healing journey would be to set up a contingency plan. Like, think about what's going to happen when you are smoking and if you get high. Do you need water? Get a bottle of water. Are you around people that you trust? I think the biggest thing for me is, as a survivor, I've already lost so much control in my life over myself, my body, my rights, so when you smoke, you do lose control of yourself a little bit. For me, at least, when I smoke, like if I get high, like I'm gonna lose control. I might dance around the living room and just be like goofy and fun, right? But I also am more susceptible to being hurt if I were out and about. You know, someone could take advantage of that. And so I would say, if you do want to try this, definitely go somewhere where it's legal, so that you can get exactly what you think you're getting, and try it somewhere safe, where you're comfortable, you're laying in bed, you got some snacks, you got a drink, you got the TV on, and you're with someone you love and care about, that you know is going to take care of you if you need anything. Because the most important thing is, if you're doing this for you and for your control and for your healing journey, and you want to implement this as a tool for yourself. You don't want to be uncomfortable if you start doing it, and you get high. Like, you don't want to be in a situation where you're just left kind of hanging. So I would just say, think ahead, and put some boundaries in place if you need to. Make sure you're somewhere good, and that's pretty much it. I would just say, and also just to remember that while marijuana can be completely safe for some people, it's not the same for everybody. Like, it's fine for me, I enjoy it, but now I know my limits, I know my boundaries, I know about it, and I know how it affects me. I don't know how it affects anyone else. Like, you know, once you've tried it, how it affects you, but no one else can set that limit for you. So I would just say, definitely take note of your tolerance, and tell you, like, figure out what your body needs, and give your body that, and don't let anyone pressure you to do it if you don't want to do it. And also, if you do want to do it, just make sure you're somewhere you're comfortable. I think that's one of the most important things.